If you're doing these things, you could actually be aging your face more rather than helping yourself. Would you like to know what these things are? Hi, I'm Dr. ATHRÉ. I'm a double board certified facial plastic surgeon based in Houston, Texas. So all of us, every single one of us, wants to look our best. We all want to find the fountain of youth. And companies and marketing companies are more than happy to throw tons and tons of options at you. Right now, if you jump on social media, TikTok, Instagram, Facebook, you will just see tons of things being thrown at you. So what works, what doesn't work, and what things can actually hurt you? That's really the focus of this talk. I want to make sure that you have all the data that you need to make the best decisions for yourself as you start navigating this journey into facial rejuvenation. So right off the bat, when we look at facial rejuvenation, what are the goals? Let's start with what the goals are, and then we can backtrack and figure out how all these things fit in. The goals, in my opinion, are to basically take you back in terms of aging. One of the other videos that I have here on YouTube talks about aging in the train station model. What I mean by that is, as we age, we basically are on this little train that's going from station to station to station. Now, what the goal of doing a type of facial rejuvenation is to pick you up from one station and drop you back at a station many years ago, whether that's 10 years ago or 15 years ago, whatever that number ends up being. It is not to stop the train. That is something that cannot be done. At the same note, I want my patients to look like themselves, not change who they are. So if we start seeing this as the goal of what we're trying to accomplish, now let's dive into the things that can actually make you look older, or worse yet, cause problems. The first thing that I see that patients frequently do is overuse fillers. Now, there's a little bit of kind of gut honesty that I'm going to throw at you in this video. So I'm going to make a couple of confessions. If you saw me maybe 10 or 15 years ago and you asked me, hey, I'd like to put some fillers in my face, I really thought that fillers were a great idea. So as we age, we all lose some volume. That volume is some of the cranial volume, volume in our skin, volume in the tissues, ... Now, the fillers seem to be a great idea for the early stages of aging just to replenish the volume. However, first of all, fillers, what we're finding, are lasting way longer than what we initially thought. All of the initial data that was presented even to me as a surgeon was that the filler is temporary. It's completely dissolved and destroyed by the body in a period of somewhere between 6 months and 14-15 months. Being a more experienced surgeon, as I'm going and doing facelifts in these patients, I am noticing some of this filler hanging around for 7 or 8 years, if not longer. Furthermore, I am also seeing that patients who have had frequent filler use in the past are actually having increased scar tissue and other problems, which makes dissection in the facelift surgery more difficult. So what are the conclusions I got from this? These filler agents are not as benign as they were initially sold. There's actually some amount of tissue inflammation and tissue reaction that is occurring when these filler agents are being injected. All that being said, here is what I see. Number one, if you are a person in that mild stages of aging and you only need a little bit of volume replenishment, I really think that fat transfer is probably a better option. Number two, the secondary issue that happens with the fillers is as follows. I made a very critical comment here. I said, initial stages of aging. So there is a certain point in there where you have a little bit of volume loss, a little bit of aging, where just adding volume is going to help solve the problem. Now, once you cross a certain threshold and that volume loss is much more severe, the amount of laxity in the tissues is more severe, and the amount of droopiness or ptosis is more severe, filling that tissue isn't going to accomplish anything. Now, this is the box where I see the most amount of patients. I see patients having gone to some of the med spas and all that, and many of these people think that if you got a hammer, everything looks like a nail. Let's just go put a bunch of filler in there, and they end up with this pillow face where they look overfilled and very artificial. I don't even know the correct words to describe it. They look plasticky, okay? So this is the biggest issues that I see with fillers. Number one, I think that they're overused. Number two, way too much of it is used. Number three, it's being used to solve problems that cannot be solved with just volume replenishment. And number four, worst of all, fillers aren't benign. So I think that there is some scarring, some scar tissue that happens, so you're kind of shooting yourself in the foot. So a much more realistic, natural option in the mild stages of aging, which is actually more long-lived, more permanent, and will actually help regenerate some of your natural tissue, is fat transfer. So let's go to the next major mistake that I see patients doing. There is a huge category of non-invasive products that promise to give you facelift type results. This is one of those things where your mom, your grandmother, your dad probably told you, if it sounds too good to be true, it probably is, and they are not wrong. So one of the most common offenders in this box is Morpheus. So Morpheus is a combination of radiofrequency as well as microneedling. Now, microneedling by itself, I think, is a relatively good procedure. However, it's a good procedure for certain things. It's a good procedure for improving skin quality, skin texture, skin issues. Microneedling by itself is not going to lift anything. Now, radiofrequency, which is basically applying energy, trying to apply it deeper in the layers of the skin, trying to lift it, is not penetrating deep enough to actually cause lifting of tissues permanently. Okay, so there's a video on here on YouTube that's titled Why I Hate Morpheus, and if you look at it, I have a diagram of how deep the Morpheus penetrates and how deep the structures that really need to be addressed are in order to truly lift the tissues. So it's not really hitting those structures at all. Worst of all, what it's actually doing is it's melting a little bit of that fat that's right underneath the skin. That subcutaneous fat is actually a very thin layer of fat, which is extremely important. It really creates the smooth contour of the neck and the face. When you go melt that fat, what happens is that as the skin ages over time, it becomes skeletonized. It looks too thin. You can see the underlying rippling of some of the tissues. And not only does it do that, it also creates scar tissues in the planes that we need to dissect to truly repair these problems. So it's kind of not a single whammy, not a double whammy, but a triple whammy, because it's actually not lifting, not really helping do any of the things you want it to do, melting the fat layer, and causing scar tissue. And this is kind of a common thread between almost all of the energy-based devices that promise to deliver these amazing facial rejuvenation results without surgery. So I think that facial rejuvenation can be performed safely in the early stages of facial aging with very minimal stuff, whether it's fat transfer, whether it's skin care, whether it's a little bit of fractionated laser. All of these various things are very good at addressing some of the initial causes of facial aging. However, there's this threshold where the facial aging gets to be in the moderate and advanced category, where the actual structures and tissues have descended in the face, and there really isn't a good option other than a surgical option. The surgical option is the most effective, it is the safest, and it actually lasts the longest and achieves the most natural results. So as you're going through this idea of facial rejuvenation, I think it's really, really important to kind of know what the options are. Now, There's a lot of information on the web, okay? Even as I scroll through my Instagram and Facebook and accounts and all that, I am just simply mesmerized by the amount of information that's just being thrown at you, okay? If I am being amazed, I can only imagine what a consumer who is not a medical professional or has very little medical background is feeling. So we get all sorts of questions like, can I really achieve a full rejuvenation with just fat transfer, doc? Well, I don't know. It really depends on what stage of facial aging you're in, how much volume loss is there, how much the tissues have descended, and what is your overall goal. So if hypothetically you have a woman who's in her 40s, early 40s, very minimal loss of actual elasticity with just a little volume loss, she's going to get a phenomenal result with fat transfer. On the other hand, you get someone who's in their 60s with significant ptosis of tissues, I can put all the fat in the world. She's not going to get an amazing result. So I think that it is important to separate all of these things as you discuss facial rejuvenation in order to find treatments that 1, work, 2, are safe, 3, last the test of time, 4, don't cause other problems. So all of these things are needed to be assessed in determining an appropriate facial rejuvenation game plan. Now, this game plan is also a dynamic game plan. So what that facial rejuvenation game plan might look like in the 40s is going to be different than the facial game plan in the 50s, which is going to be different than the facial rejuvenation game plan in the 60s. So this information needs to all be put together, processed, looked at it cohesively, and that's how you make adequate decisions based on data and science. I hope this has helped. I hope it's kind of separated a little bit of fact and fiction, maybe taken out a little bit of the hype and kind of given you a little bit of a more realistic viewpoint about facial rejuvenation and the facial rejuvenation industry. If you found this content helpful, you like this video, you want to be notified of more stuff like this, please hit the subscribe button. If you have comments, you want to tell me something, ask me something, please include it down below in the comment section. I really appreciate your time in watching this video. I'm Dr. ATHRÉ, double board certified facial plastic surgeon, Houston, Texas.